In a world where every breath is scrutinized and every step is photographed, imagine being a young woman thrust into the most watched family on earth. When Catherine Middleton first stepped into the royal spotlight, she had no idea that one simple gesture from her prince would become the foundation of their unbreakable bond. This is the untold story of how Prince William's instinctive protection of Catherine during her most vulnerable moments shaped not just their relationship, but changed the very nature of royal public life forever. What started as a university romance would face the ultimate test when the world's cameras turned their relentless gaze upon an ordinary girl who dared to love a prince. But behind the headlines and speculation lay a deeper truth. Sometimes the most powerful acts of love happen in the smallest moments, when one person becomes another's shield against an unforgiving world. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of St. Andrews University as Catherine Middleton hurried across the cobblestone courtyard, her dark hair catching the Scottish breeze. It was 2001, and she was just another student navigating her way through art history lectures and late-night study sessions. Little did she know that her life was about to change forever, not because of a fairy tale romance, but because of the harsh realities that come with loving someone the world believes it owns. Catherine had first noticed William during their freshman orientation. He wasn't trying to blend in, that was impossible, but there was something different about the way he carried himself compared to other students who came from privileged backgrounds. While others seemed to flaunt their connections, William appeared almost uncomfortable with the attention his presence naturally commanded. He wore simple jeans and sweaters, kept his head down during lectures, and seemed genuinely interested in forming normal friendships. Their friendship began innocently enough. They lived in the same residence hall, St. Salvator's, where William had specifically requested to be treated like any other student. Catherine found herself drawn to his dry sense of humor and his surprising knowledge about art. Unlike the tabloid portrayals of a party-loving prince, William was serious about his studies and spent hours discussing Byzantine art and Renaissance painters with Catherine and their small group of friends. The first time Catherine truly saw William's protective nature wasn't romantic at all. It was during a particularly brutal Scottish winter when she had fallen ill with flu. While most students would have simply sent a text asking if she needed anything, William showed up at her door with homemade soup from the residence kitchen and spent the afternoon making sure she had everything she needed. He didn't make a big show of it, didn't expect gratitude, and certainly didn't want anyone else to know. It was simply what he did for people he cared about. As their friendship deepened into something more, Catherine began to understand the weight that William carried. She watched him field phone calls from palace officials about his schedule, saw him struggle with the knowledge that every decision he made would eventually become public, and witnessed his frustration when photographers began appearing around campus more frequently. The carefree university experience that most young people took for granted was something William had to fight for every single day. The first real test of their relationship came during their second year, when rumors about William dating someone began circulating in the British press. Catherine's name hadn't been mentioned yet, but she could see the stress it caused William. He became more cautious about where they went together, more aware of who might be watching or listening. The spontaneous coffee dates and casual walks through town became carefully planned activities, always with an escape route in mind. Catherine's friends began asking questions she couldn't answer. Where was she going when she slipped away from group dinners? Why was she suddenly so secretive about her weekend plans? The weight of keeping their relationship private was something she hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just about her own privacy anymore. It was about protecting William from the scrutiny that followed his every move. The moment everything changed happened on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday afternoon in their third year. Catherine was walking back from the library when she noticed a photographer across the street, clearly taking pictures of students. Her heart sank as she realized he was focusing on her. Somehow, someone had figured out that she was important to William, and now she was about to become part of the story whether she wanted to be or not. She tried to act naturally, continuing her walk back to the residence hall, but she could feel the photographer following her. Her hands began to shake as she fumbled with her key card at the entrance. This was exactly what William had been trying to protect her from, and now it was happening whether they were ready or not. When William found her later that evening, sitting in her room with the curtains drawn, he could see immediately that something had changed. Catherine told him about the photographer, about the feeling of being watched and pursued. She saw something shift in William's expression, a hardening around his eyes that she had never seen before. It wasn't anger exactly, but a fierce protectiveness that made her understand for the first time why people referred to him as future king. William made a decision that night that would define their relationship for years to come. He couldn't stop the media interest. His position made that impossible, but he could control how they handled it. He could be her shield in ways both big and small, creating barriers between Catherine and the worst aspects of royal life while still allowing their love to grow. The next morning, William walked Catherine to her lectures, staying close enough to discourage photographers, but far enough away that they weren't obviously together. He coordinated with their friends to make sure Catherine was never alone when leaving buildings where photographers might be waiting. He even spoke quietly to university security about increasing their presence around areas where Catherine spent time, but perhaps most importantly, William began teaching Catherine about the media game itself. He explained how photographers worked, what they were looking for, how to move in ways that made getting clear pictures difficult. He shared strategies his mother had taught him about maintaining dignity under scrutiny. He helped her understand that this attention wasn't really about her, it was about him. And by extension, about the institution he represented. Catherine proved to be a quick learner. She began varying her routes around campus, using different entrances to buildings and coordinating with friends who could serve as casual shields when photographers were around. But more than the practical strategies, she began to develop the mental resilience needed to handle public scrutiny. William was amazed by her natural grace under pressure and her refusal to let the media attention change who she was at her core. Their relationship deepened through this shared challenge. They developed their own communication system, subtle signals that let each other know when they felt uncomfortable or needed to leave a situation. William learned to read Catherine's moods, understanding when the pressure was getting to her even when she tried to hide it. Catherine learned to trust William's instincts about potentially problematic situations and to follow his lead when navigating public spaces. The university years became a training ground for the life they would eventually share. Every challenge they faced together, from managing media attention to balancing their relationship with their individual goals, prepared them for the much larger challenges that awaited them beyond St. Andrews. William's protective instincts grew stronger with each passing month, and Catherine's confidence in handling difficult situations grew alongside it. By their final year, they had developed a partnership that went far beyond typical young love. They had learned to protect each other, to anticipate problems before they arose, and to maintain their individual identities even while becoming a team. The shy art history student and the reluctant future king had forged a bond strong enough to withstand the pressures that had destroyed royal relationships before them. As graduation approached, both Catherine and William knew that leaving the relative safety of university life would mean facing new challenges. The real world wouldn't be as forgiving as St. Andrews had been. There would be more photographers, more scrutiny, more pressure to define their relationship in terms the public could understand. But they also knew they had something precious, a foundation of trust and protection that had been tested and proven strong. The transition from university life to the real world hit Catherine like a cold wave. Graduation from St. Andrews in June 2005 had been bittersweet, a celebration of their academic achievements overshadowed by the knowledge that their protective bubble was about to burst. As they walked across the stage to receive their degrees, photographers captured every moment, and Catherine could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes studying her every expression, every gesture, every choice of clothing. The months following graduation were unlike anything Catherine had experienced. William returned to his military training at Sandhurst, while she moved to London to begin her career. For the first time in years, they were separated by more than just a few dormitory buildings, and the distance made the media attention feel more intense and isolating. Without William's constant presence as a buffer, Catherine found herself truly alone in facing the growing interest in her personal life. The British press had officially identified her as William's girlfriend, and with that identification came a level of scrutiny that made her university experiences seem gentle by comparison. Photographers waited outside her flat in Chelsea, followed her to work, and pursued her during simple errands like grocery shopping. The girl who had once enjoyed anonymous walks through St. Petery Andrews now found herself planning every public appearance with military precision. Catherine's job at Jigsaw, an accessories company, should have provided some normalcy, but even her workplace became a stage for media attention. Photographers waited outside the building, trying to capture images of her arriving and leaving work. Her colleagues, initially excited about having a royal girlfriend in their midst, began to understand the complications that came with such attention. Simple office lunches became strategic operations, and Catherine found herself eating at her desk more often than not to avoid the cameras outside. The pressure affected every aspect of her daily life. Shopping for clothes became an exercise in public relations, as every outfit would be analyzed and critiqued in newspaper fashion pages. A simple choice like wearing jeans and a sweater could spark headlines about her being too casual, while dressing up might be interpreted as trying too hard to fit into royal circles. Catherine began to understand why William had seemed so careful about every decision during their university years. Phone calls between Catherine and William during this period were lifelines that kept her grounded. He would call between training exercises to check on her, offering advice about handling specific situations and helping her process the emotional toll of constant scrutiny. William understood better than anyone what it felt like to have every aspect of your life dissected by strangers, and he became Catherine's guide through this bewildering new reality. When William completed his officer training at Sandhurst in December 2005, the media attention around their relationship intensified even further. His graduation ceremony was a major royal event, attended by the Queen and other senior royals, and Catherine's presence there would send a clear message about the seriousness of their relationship. The decision about whether she should attend became their first major test in navigating public expectations versus personal desires. William wanted Catherine there. This was one of the most important days of his military career, and he wanted to share it with the person who mattered most to him, but both of them understood the implications. Her attendance would be seen as a semi-official acknowledgement of their relationship and would likely lead to even more intense media coverage. After long discussions, they decided that Catherine would attend but would sit separately from the royal family, making it clear that she was there as a supportive girlfriend rather than an official partner. The Sandhurst graduation became a masterclass in William's protective instincts. He arranged for Catherine to have a clear exit strategy, coordinated with his protection officers to ensure her safety, and made sure she had support from friends who could help her navigate the crowds and media attention. Even while focused on his own significant day, William's primary concern was Catherine's comfort and security. The images from that day showed Catherine looking poised and elegant, but those close to her could see the signs of stress, the slightly tense shoulders, the careful way she moved through crowds, the practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She was learning to perform her own life, to present a version of herself that could withstand public scrutiny while protecting her true self from being completely consumed by public interest. Following Sandhurst, William was assigned to various military postings, and the couple faced new challenges in maintaining their relationship across distances and demanding schedules. William's military duties took him to different bases around the UK and sometimes overseas, while Catherine continued her work in London. The separations were difficult, but they also provided some relief from the constant media attention that surrounded them when they were together. During this period, Catherine developed remarkable resilience and independence. She learned to handle media attention on her own, developing her own strategies for maintaining privacy and dignity under pressure. She became skilled at reading situations, understanding when photographers were likely to be present, and how to move through public spaces in ways that discouraged unwanted attention. But the most significant challenge came in early 2007 when speculation about an engagement began reaching fever pitch. The British media, hungry for a royal wedding story, began analysing every aspect of Catherine and William's relationship for signs of imminent engagement. Every piece of jewellery Catherine wore was scrutinised for engagement ring potential. Every public appearance was dissected for clues about wedding planning, and every absence from William's side was interpreted as a sign of relationship trouble. The pressure became suffocating. Catherine found herself unable to make any public appearance without being asked about engagement plans by photographers and reporters. Her family home in Berkshire became a target for media attention, with photographers camping outside hoping to catch glimpses of her or her family members. The simple life she had known growing up was completely disrupted, and her parents and siblings found themselves thrust into unwanted spotlight. William watched Catherine struggle under this pressure and made several decisive interventions that demonstrated his evolving understanding of how to protect her. He spoke privately with media organizations, requesting that they respect Catherine's privacy and that of her family. He coordinated with his protection officers to ensure Catherine had access to security support when needed, even when they weren't together. More importantly, William began helping Catherine understand that she didn't owe the public constant access to her life. He encouraged her to say no to public appearances that felt overwhelming, to prioritize her own well-being over public expectations, and to remember that their relationship timeline should be determined by them alone, not by media speculation or public pressure. The breaking point came in March 2007 when Catherine was pursued by photographers while trying to attend a private birthday party. The photographers followed her car through London traffic, creating dangerous driving conditions and turning a simple social event into a nightmare scenario. The incident was reminiscent of the car chases that had plagued William's mother, and it crystallized for both William and Catherine how serious the situation had become. That night, William made several phone calls that would change how Catherine was treated by the media going forward. He spoke directly with editors at major newspapers and magazines, making it clear that the level of harassment Catherine was experiencing was unacceptable and potentially dangerous. He also reached out to his father's office, asking for additional support and guidance on how to better protect Catherine while their relationship continued to develop. The response was swift and significant. Media organizations agreed to pull back on the most aggressive pursuit tactics, and Catherine found herself with slightly more breathing room in her daily life. But more importantly, William had demonstrated that he was willing to use his position and influence to protect her, even when doing so drew attention to the seriousness of their relationship. By summer 2007, Catherine had developed into a completely different person than the university student she had been just 2 years earlier. She moved through public spaces with confidence, handled media attention with grace, and maintained her dignity even under the most intense scrutiny. She had learned to protect herself, but she had also learned to trust William's protection and to work with him as a team in managing the challenges they faced together. Their relationship had been tested by separation, pressure, and constant public scrutiny, but it had emerged stronger. They had developed communication patterns and support systems that would serve them well in the years ahead. Catherine had proven she could handle the pressures of royal life, and William had proven he would fight to protect her from the worst aspects of public attention. As 2007 progressed, both Catherine and William began to feel more confident about their future together. They had survived the initial media storm, developed strategies for maintaining privacy and dignity, and proven to themselves and others that their love could withstand extraordinary pressures. The foundation they had built during their university years had been tested in the real world and found to be solid enough to build a life upon. The announcement came on a crisp November morning in 2010, sending shockwaves of excitement across the globe. After years of speculation, Prince William and Catherine Middleton were officially engaged. The sapphire and diamond ring that had once belonged to Princess Diana sparkled on Catherine's finger as she stood beside William in the state apartments of St. James's Palace, facing a room full of photographers and journalists from around the world. But behind the fairy tale headlines lay a more complex story of how two people had learned to navigate extraordinary circumstances while protecting what mattered most to them. The engagement represented not just a romantic milestone, but the culmination of years of careful preparation, strategic thinking, and unwavering mutual protection that had allowed their love to survive and flourish under impossible conditions. The engagement interview, broadcast to millions of viewers worldwide, showcased the partnership Catherine and William had developed. When journalists asked probing questions about the pressures of royal life, William consistently redirected attention away from Catherine's vulnerabilities and toward their shared commitment to service. When photographers clamored for more personal details, Catherine demonstrated the poise and discretion she had spent years developing. They moved through the media obligations as a team, each instinctively knowing when to step forward and when to provide support from the background. The months leading up to their wedding in April 2011 presented new challenges that tested every lesson they had learned about protection and partnership. The global media attention was unlike anything either had experienced. Every detail of the wedding planning became international news, from the choice of venue to the guest list to Catherine's dress design. The pressure was immense, but William had spent years preparing Catherine for exactly this level of scrutiny. Catherine's transformation during this period was remarkable to observe. The shy university student had evolved into a woman who could hold her own in any situation. She handled pre-wedding events with natural grace, from formal dinners with foreign dignitaries to charity galas where she was expected to make speeches and interact with donors. William watched with pride as Catherine navigated these challenges, but he never stopped being vigilant about protecting her from situations that might overwhelm her. The wedding preparations also revealed how William's protective instincts had evolved into something more sophisticated than simply shielding Catherine from media attention. He had learned to create spaces where she could be authentic, while still fulfilling public expectations. During wedding planning meetings, he made sure Catherine's voice was heard and her preferences respected, even when they conflicted with royal protocol. He understood that protecting Catherine meant more than just keeping her safe. It meant ensuring she could maintain her identity, even while becoming a royal. The wedding day itself became the ultimate test of everything they had learned about handling public attention while staying true to themselves. Westminster Abbey was filled with nearly 2,000 guests, including heads of state, celebrities, and members of European royal families. Outside, millions of people lined the streets of London, and billions more watched on television around the world. The pressure could have been paralyzing, but Catherine moved through the day with confidence born from years of preparation. William's protective nature was evident in countless small gestures throughout the day. He positioned himself to shield Catherine from the most intrusive cameras during private moments, whispered reassuring words during the ceremony when the magnitude of the occasion seemed overwhelming, and made sure she always had an escape route during the most crowded portions of the celebrations. Even on what was supposedly the happiest day of their lives, William remained constantly aware of Catherine's comfort and well-being. The balcony appearance at Buckingham Palace, where the newlyweds kissed before the cheering crowds, represented a perfect example of their evolved partnership. Catherine looked radiant and confident, waving to the crowds with natural warmth, while William maintained his protective stance beside her. They had found a way to give the public the fairy tale moment it craved, while protecting their authentic connection to each other. But perhaps the most significant moment came later that evening, during the private reception for close family and friends. Away from cameras and public scrutiny, Catherine and William were finally able to relax and enjoy their wedding day as themselves rather than as public figures. Guests later described seeing the couple laugh together, dance without worrying about photographers, and simply enjoy being newly married. It was a reminder that all of William's protection and all of Catherine's adaptation had been in service of preserving something precious, their real relationship beneath all the public performance. The early years of their marriage continued to showcase the protective partnership they had developed. As the Duchess of Cambridge, Catherine took on increasing royal duties, but William remained consistently supportive and protective. He helped her prepare for speeches, accompanied her to events where she felt less confident, and continued to serve as a buffer between her and the most challenging aspects of royal life. Catherine's first solo royal engagements were carefully chosen to build her confidence gradually. William worked behind the scenes to ensure she had the support she needed, from briefings about the people she would meet to backup plans if events became overwhelming. He understood that true protection wasn't about preventing Catherine from taking on challenges, but about ensuring she had the tools and support necessary to succeed. The birth of their children brought new dimensions to William's protective instincts. He became fiercely protective not just of Catherine, but of their family's privacy and normalcy. The couple worked together to establish boundaries around their children's exposure to media attention, and William took the lead in negotiating with press organizations about respecting their family life. Throughout Catherine's pregnancies and the early months of motherhood, William's protection took on new forms. He adjusted his own royal schedule to be present during crucial moments, shielded Catherine from criticism about her parenting choices, and worked to ensure their children could have as normal a childhood as possible despite their royal status. Catherine, in turn, provided William with the stability and support he needed to balance his royal duties with his role as a father. The evolution of their public appearances over the years demonstrated how their protective partnership had matured. They moved through crowds together with practiced ease, each automatically adjusting their position to give the other space or support as needed. Catherine had developed her own protective instincts toward William, understanding when he was uncomfortable or needed support during particularly challenging public events. Their joint charitable work became another avenue for mutual protection and support. They chose causes that mattered to both of them and worked together to make meaningful impacts rather than just fulfilling public relations obligations. Catherine brought her own insights and passions to their royal role, while William provided the institutional knowledge and connections needed to be effective. The challenges they faced together, from media criticism to family difficulties to global crises, only strengthened their protective bond. They had learned to present a united front while allowing each other space to be individuals. William continued to shield Catherine from the worst aspects of public criticism, while Catherine provided William with emotional support and perspective that helped him handle the pressures of his future kingship. Looking back on their journey from university sweethearts to senior working royals, the consistency of William's protective nature and Catherine's graceful adaptation is remarkable. They had created something unique within the royal family. A partnership based on mutual respect, protection, and genuine love that had survived extraordinary pressures and emerged stronger. Catherine had transformed from a private citizen into one of the most photographed women in the world, but she had managed to maintain her authentic self throughout the transition. William had learned that true protection wasn't about controlling every aspect of their public life, but about providing the support and tools Catherine needed to thrive in her royal role while staying true to her values and personality. Their story became an inspiration to couples facing their own challenges, demonstrating that love combined with mutual respect and protection could overcome seemingly impossible obstacles. The shy art history student and the reluctant future king had created a modern royal love story. One built not on fairy tale romance but on the deeper foundations of partnership, protection, and unwavering commitment to each other's well-being. The gentlemanly gesture that had defined their early relationship, William's instinct to shield Catherine from unwanted attention, had evolved into something more complex and meaningful. It had become a way of being together that honored both their public responsibilities and their private love, creating space for authenticity within the constraints of royal life, and proving that sometimes the most profound acts of love are the quiet, consistent ways we choose to protect and support each other every single day.